it proper. This is the regular meeting of April 26, 2022 of the Belvedere Tiburon Joint Disaster Advisory Council, otherwise known as the Peninsula Disaster Council. We never do really take formal roll, so I guess we don't need to change that this time. Lori, you'll know who was here and who wasn't here.
Yes.
So we should look at the minutes that were distributed after our last meeting. Those were distributed to you by email. And I hope everyone has had a chance to review those. They seem to be quite complete. And the thing that does bother me a little bit are the vacancies that we have. So let's wait and discuss that when we get to that part of Chris's report, I think. Okay. So new business, let's go ahead. A couple of announcements that you have. I guess you all probably know that now that Craig Middleton, who has been the city manager of Belvedere for the past 5 years, will be stepping down as city manager and probably going into retirement, although he won't admit it, but has done a marvelous job. Did a great job in Belvedere. He was applauded generously last night at the annual meeting. He's done a nice job. He will be replaced internally by Robert Zadnick, who has been our public works director for 4 or 5 years and also done a marvelous job. And he did such a good job, they also awarded him with the position of emergency coordinator to match Lori's position in Tiburon. So he has been not only our public works director, but our emergency management director in Belvedere for the past year or so. Now that he is or will be formally in the next month or so the city manager, he will have to appoint a new public works director. So we'll see what he does with that. Robert is not on, is he? Hopefully
he is not. And so this is actually on the agenda to speak to later. And if he doesn't make it by then, I'm going to go ahead and speak on for him. He got called into a meeting and he did text me and let me know that he had an emergency meeting and couldn't make it.
So that being the case, I guess we really can't go to the second-ish item on the new business, which is the Belvedere evac plan, which really is not a new issue. It's been an issue for 15 years around here. Still has some problems.
So I'm going to speak to that one too.
If you want to just go ahead and do that now? Or
yeah, so we'll go ahead and do that now. We'll just blow through this real fast. So Robert is working on putting together a committee, and I believe what it's going to be is going to be a subcommittee off of our task force, just to give them a little authority. It sounds like it's going to be just a task force like what we have with the strategic plan. So they're going to fall under the disaster council. And they're going to work on updating the Belvedere evacuation plan. I think I wrote that plan with Ed Lynch 8 or 9 years ago. So it's going to be updated by Robert and a task force.
And just, Crystal, to keep you up to date, we being the entire community, and especially those of us interested in disaster preparedness, have been concerned about evacuating the peninsula for some 15, 20 years now. We have 2 roads out, Paradise Drive, which in a significant rainstorm goes down and is no longer manageable. So that leaves Tiburon Boulevard. And if any of us, I'm sure you have, Crystal, tried to go down Tiburon Boulevard at 8 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon, and it's already a disaster in normal circumstances. So if it turned into some sort of evacuation of the community or trying to get first responders into the community at either one of those times, it would be very, very problematic. So that's kind of what all this interest is in. We still don't have answers for that. But Lori, do you want to try to, anything else on that at this point? Or?
If I had the emergency or the evacuation plan available, we could go through, but there is a current evacuation plan that talks about the importance of being ready to shelter in place, the different scenarios when you would evacuate. It has the different staging locations and some different routes that are possibilities. The key thing I think that needs to be updated in the evacuation plan is going to be some of our communication methods have actually improved greatly since the evacuation plan was written. Again, that was 8 or 9 years ago. And since then, we have Alert Marin, which is a fantastic communication tool that can reach people by home phone, cell phone, text message, and email. and let them know the most current up-to-date evacuation information or shelter in place information. And most emergency scenarios are shelter in place. There's not a lot where it's actually going to be the community is in such grave danger that they need to evacuate as a whole. Tsunami would be a case where would need people in the low-lying areas to evacuate. And Alert Marin is capable of mapping out just the low-lying areas to evacuate them. So that's going to be something that we'll have to work into the new evacuation plan. And Robert is going to be heading that committee up. So it'll be a committee formed with the purpose of updating that evac plan.
Do we have any idea, Lori, when Robert hopes to have that together?
I don't know. I just recently found out about this group that he's putting together. And he was talking about making a new disaster council to take care of it. And I think the best way, since their focus is just going to be on this one task, is going to be to make a task force or a committee off of this one, because he wants to disband the group after they're done updating the plan.
Well, I will talk to Robert sometime before the next meeting and find out specifically what his plans are for that.
So, and I've already reached out to him and asked to meet with him about doing the exact same thing, because I want to make sure he knows the different types of options for committees and task force, because he doesn't want to necessarily make a whole new disaster council.
Well, yeah, I would. I think redundancy is important in disaster, but we may be getting overly redundant with trying to create yet another committee. But let's.
So I think that doing a task force off of this one, a subshoot from this one, and going ahead and as a disaster council as a whole right now, just saying, hey, they're going to make this task force headed by Robert Zadnick under our umbrella is not unreasonable.
Mike, are you on? Guess not.
Mike's driving right now.
No, I'm here. Yeah, I'm
He and
here.
Fred are just driving, but they're here.
Have you, or has the fire department heard anything from Robert Zadnick about some new disaster committee of some sort?
No, I have not. But we have chatted about Zone Haven a few times, so
Right.
I would assume that that's being incorporated in. But no, I have not since his announcement.
Well,
so no.
Not much point in discussing that at this point until we have a chance to find out what Robert wants to do. So I will follow up on that. So let's go ahead to, or any comments, concerns about any of those discussions? All right, we will move on to our old business. And the first item is revitalizing our disaster council strategic plan of disaster preparedness efforts. Chris Murphy has headed this thing up, and it has been very fortunate for our committee, or our council, to have Chris. He is the newest member on the council. He represents Tiburon. Unfortunately, we heard just a few days ago that he is he's not going to be in Tiburon much longer. He's moving back to Chicago, and I guess, try as we could to dissuade him from that, he is still going to move. So that's going to be a big loss for us. Anyway, in the process, he suggested that our council, and I certainly agree with him, does a great job of educating our council, but has never really been very good at getting our discussions or deliberations out to the public. And Chris came up with a relatively formalized plan that will allow us to establish goals every 3 years and then objectively measure those goals in about 4 different categories. And to make some sort of objective assessment as to what we're trying to accomplish. And with that, I won't go into that any further, but I will let Chris kind of describe that for you.
Thanks, Dr. Tom. So to recap, last October, I shared a presentation about some observations I've had as the newest member on the council, and echoing Dr. Tom, there's such great content and such great advocacy within this Council for Disaster Preparedness, but there weren't very clear ways we were laddering things up and kind of combining efforts to really clearly understand, is the peninsula prepared? And how do we measure that in our efforts and our programs to see, are we helping the community get prepared more? So over the series of a number of task force separate calls and meetings we've had with Lori, with Dr. Tom, with Jamie, with Jerry, and Mike, we started with an outline, and that outline was a living document that we added different thoughts, different ideas to, and ultimately developed what's now a 9-page document that I'll share. Lori, I think I've already gotten. No, I need you to make me a host to share it. That really is just a framework. To Dr. Tom's point, we kind of borrowed from Mill Valley and their approach to a strategic plan that looks on a 3-year cycle to set goals, to try strategies and tactics to move the needle on those goals, and then reevaluate after those 3 years. Did we achieve what we're looking for? Are those still the right goals to have? And so the effort from this task force was to, find a place to start where we could create those baselines, those benchmarks that then subsequent years and council members could build off of, but really create that foundation that we can build on top of. So what I'd love to do is share a little bit of how this actually came to life and what actually is included in the plan. Again, think of it very much as a open-ended guide, not a fixed blueprint of how to have disaster preparedness. So we include things like the purpose of this council. We include a little bit of the history of this council as well. The purpose of this plan, why does it exist? A placeholder for future plans, kind of look back of how did we, the progress we made or the progress we didn't make, and what might we do different in the future. Kind of what are these themes we're calling out for this plan, the specific goals during this time we're into, some strategies, a sample. Again, it's not meant to fix very specific things this council has to do over 3 years, but a starting point, some ideas, again, laddering back to those goals. And then just a brief conclusion that kind of reflects a lot of what we know around preparedness, that it ebbs and flows to the news cycles, to personal experience, but that this group in particular has to stay vigilant, especially during the quieter times, to try to make sure the peninsula is as ready as it can be in the event of a disaster. So purpose, this is very much borrowed from the bylaws, again, of why this disaster council exists. No real changes compared to the bylaws, and we're even flagging it, for individuals reading this, that if they'd love to learn more about the bylaws, they can contact Lori. The history, I'm fortunate that both Dr. Tom and Mike kind of shared a number of different tidbits about the council's background, from when it was founded to those kind of early involved, to then kind of the major efforts that this council has put together over the past, and really is a reflection again of the commitment the towns have to this area, and the progress that has been made over time as well. And that revitalization is really just meant a reflection to maintain that progress that's already been made and move it forward. And so things like the council itself, Get Ready program, first aid stations, and the block captain program. And then we're just making note of the members of kind of who developed this plan, that obviously in subsequent strategic plans, there'll be other names. So getting more specific into the plan itself, again, we're kind of highlighting how this came to be, the task force involvement, the framework around updating this every 3 years. Again, just as that framework and a baseline to measure success, and then a placeholder for future plans to have kind of results read out, what we learned, and what we do different, what we do again. So where it really kind of gets interesting is our themes, right? And the task force debated a number of different aspects of what it means to be prepared, and we kind of came up with this almost 3 tiers, if you will, and how one can kind of graduate into the other, almost like a marketing funnel, where the concept of a passive individual, so someone that we can reach in an emergency, is really important versus someone we can't reach in an emergency. And that's the baseline. We want all of the residents, all of the households in our 2 towns to at least have that ability. And in particular, in discussions with Lori and Mike, Alert Marin as the single thing to sign up for. You can sign up for other things, but we're going to specifically track the Alert Marin signups is the key indicator of success for this. So as we promote things in the newsletter or maybe even the ARC, signing up for Alert Marin is one of those key messages that always will be present to make sure we're growing that number as best as we can with the changes in residents as well. Now, not everybody, people want to do more than simply sign up. So this notion of an active individual has taken those steps necessary to prepare themselves and their immediate household for a disaster. And the best way we believe we can measure that is through Get Ready attendance and participation. Obviously, that's gone through its own changes with in-person and then virtual through YouTube. We even discussed the options for things like Google Classroom. The format can change over time, but the participation is really what the goal is for this. So that we're now, again, moving people from just being able to be reached during an emergency to now can actually do something in an emergency, take care of themselves. And then there's one step further, which is not only are you prepared to take care of yourselves, but you're prepared to take care of your neighbors as well. And again, kind of a graduation of that expertise and skill set and awareness within a disaster. We felt the Block Captain program was the best kind of benchmark and program that we already had that has mixed adoption across the peninsula to encourage, to do more with, to include the Block Captains in this form as well, and make that a little bit more part of the culture than the separate program that it might operate a little bit as today. So how do we make that easier to set up Block Captain programs? How do we borrow from other associations within the community, like neighborhood watch programs or Firewise communities, to say, let's do a little bit more here and officially call this a Block Captain program as well. So again, neighbors helping neighbors. The last one was around an accountable community. During the time, even these past 2 years, there's been 2 key items around tsunami signs and evacuation decals that appeared to be approved but hadn't been implemented. So one of the things that we track as part of the strategic plan is actually implementing the things that we wanted to get done that had been approved by town councils, and making sure this council feels empowered to advocate back to the town councils if things aren't being implemented in the way we believe that they should. The other key to note is, as we're looking at these numbers, is we want to look at them in the context of actually how many individuals and households exist on the peninsula. So using kind of census information, we can kind of pull, again, rough estimates. So when we look to see Alert Marin has, only 1,000 signups, well, we know that's 1,000 out of, let's just say we're looking at the adult population, 8,700 people. That feels low, right? If signups were actually 8,000, then we actually think we're doing really well. But if we didn't know that benchmark of how many people, again, as an estimate, are in our peninsula, we wouldn't gauge our success very well. So that's kind of a key component of what that maximum, in a sense, would be of participation in these different programs. Specifically, then citing the goals for these, we're looking at year-over-year growth. Again, I think 2022 is very much setting the benchmark to understand how many addresses and individuals we have in Alert Marin, to quantify as best we can, Get Ready participation. I know Lori is bringing them back in person. The record keeping earlier to that, people may have moved anyways. So again, this year is very much about setting that benchmark to, again, improve year over year. Block Captain program as well, again, using kind of 30% as that target. And we're not looking at the number of captains, but simply a Block Captain program exists in a community. So borrowing from things like Zonehaven or other kind of neighborhood associations, we can define neighborhoods and, again, identify that a program actually exists. Not sure how strong it is, how many members there are, but this is, we felt, the best way to get started and to point our finger to say, how are we doing at growing Block Captain programs across the peninsula, as a way to measure that active community. And the last goal around the accountable community has 2 components. One, that a member of this council engages with other disaster councils in our neighboring towns and communities to see what they're learning, what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, so we don't repeat those same mistakes. And so every year we'll kind of come back with, a notes page of here's the conversation with Mill Valley, what they did year over year. How did they think they performed? What are they going to try next? And kind of part two, again, in the event of things not being implemented, that this group feels empowered to engage with town councils or public works to try to push it through, because it is meaningful for disaster preparedness and it has actually been approved. The last two sections are around strategies, tactics, and again, a kind of conclusion wrap up. And the strategies and tactics are not meant to be all encompassing of what this council will do over the next 3 years, but merely kind of an indicator to say, during our chipper days, we're going to promote sign up for Alert Marin if you already haven't, schedule a get ready class, either on demand or in person. Here's that list of those dates and here's how you sign up. And do you know about the Black Captain program? If you're clearing debris out from your home, maybe this is a good opportunity for you to help your neighbor do some of that as well. So finding these moments that are already occurring within the calendar and these platforms that already exist like Nextdoor and Instagram and the town newsletters to, again, promote those three key things is a key piece to the strategic plan. The other key pieces are more life moments. So the other ones are just ongoing. The other ones are very particular for when a new resident moves into town. It's my understanding that there might be some work being done more broadly on, hey, you're new to Tiburon, you're new to Belvedere on the website. Here's all the things to know. What internet service and TV providers exist in our towns. Here's now your get ready sign up. Here's your Alert Marin sign up. So making it a bit more of a all-inclusive thing. And then within the get ready program in the school, to have the kids remind their parents, hey, are we signed up? Should we do a get ready class together? I just did one, you should do one, as well as then a Block Captain program too. The last bit around this, the strategy and tactic, is formalize an annual report from this town council from this disaster council to the town council on how things went. And again, what we learned and what we're going to try to do differently, what has worked, what we're going to try to do more of. And then as needed, have ad hoc action items on their agenda to make sure disaster preparedness is still top of mind for them. And as I kind of mentioned in the beginning, the conclusion, kind of the wrap up, is really just a reflection that no plan is perfect. We had lots of great ideas, but we don't have infinite resources. So we needed to start somewhere. But the key thing is that the planning that we're actually doing is really critical. And that the kind of culture of test and learn, to try things out, learn from the past is the key piece, so that over time this will get better and better, and the whole peninsula will benefit from it. So I'll pause and see if there's any questions or comments in any of the sections that I'm happy to go back through.
Chris, thank you so much for all the work you've done on this. It looks amazing.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah, I would just add this, Fred, with Southern Marin. I would just add that's awesome plan. A lot of that where we're doing that in Sausalito and Mill Valley, and especially the part where you're working in conjunction with other councils. I think that's kind of with the way things are happening. And also being able to communicate that out. That's a great idea. Very good work.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Chris. I think you have taken Mill Valley's approach and improved it substantially. I think this is a very concise plan. Excuse me for all of this spam stuff on my phone. You did a marvelous job with this thing, and we might have to invite you back on an annual, or at least every 3 years, to tell us if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. This, I think, is going to be very, very important for us to follow this and try to get some goals that we can measure things. And a big part of that is going to be communicating with the city councils and telling them what is going on and what needs to be going on, because we have never done that very effectively. So thank you very much for your efforts. I have a couple of comments that does everybody have this, Lori? We just sent this out today.
No.
Can we make sure we send this to Crystal, for instance, and other people who are here today? That I think, especially Crystal, this will help you understand a little bit about the history of where we've been the past 20 years around here.
Yes, but I think, yes, we can, except I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Do we need to adopt and improve this?
Well,
feel like-
yes.
I
yes.
feel like before
Well,
I released it, Crystal, I don't want to, it's not you. I think we, at the next disaster council meeting, need to approve it, or we could get together an impromptu before Chris leaves, gather everybody together so that we can unanimously adopt this plan,
but
which is
think,
what I would
you know,
like to do.
We haven't formally adopted it all. I'm sure we will. But there's no reason we have to wait 2 months to let Crystal look at it. And I'm particularly concerned about the library because once it is finished, it most likely will be a designated collection point for the community in the event of a disaster. We still have an issue with power there. The new building, we have talked about some sort of regenerated power, rooftop solar, and some sort of storage capability, but the funding was not there, not available at this time. So that has been put on the back burner, but on a very short leash on a back burner, because when money is available, we want that capability at the library. So, Crystal, that is for your edification. And when you get a copy of this report, take a look at especially the history and you'll get some idea. I think you were involved with disaster preparedness in Southern California where you were. So it will be interesting to see how this compares with that.
And maybe some of this is a conversation to have, Crystal, outside of the disaster council meeting, because there are a lot of shelter plans in place with the Red Cross, and the library is not one of those for multiple reasons. It didn't fit the criteria and is not one of our
Lori, if
designated.
you're aware, that's always been a problem.
So
with
maybe
the Red
that's a
Cross and-
conversation to have offline at a, we'll chat about
Yeah.
that. And there's some other things that we can give you. There's a evacuation plan for the library employees, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can talk about as far as the library goes. But
well, the Red Cross, in my 20 years involved with this sort of stuff, it went through 20 years ago in every community throughout the country and selected virtually every public building as a shelter or whatever. And then over the past 2 or 3 years or 5 years has really de-emphasized that responsibility. They simply want to be a shelter. They don't want anything to do really with medical care and things of that sort. So we'll see where that goes, and I'll certainly keep Crystal apprised of what's going on with that situation.
definitely.
And the other concern I had, Lori, is in this report where it talks about the membership of our council. And we have one vacancy in Belvedere, which we've had for quite a while, I guess. We have another, or we will now have another vacancy in Tiburon when Chris leaves. So we're going to have to fill those 2. Is that where we are? So if we fill those 2 holes, we'll be complete again?
Yes, and we haven't actually started asking anybody to apply for Chris's job since he hasn't even given
I
us.
haven't left yet.
He
Dr.
hasn't
Tom.
resigned yet, but Beth
I don't want to have a 10-month old delay before we get somebody to replace you.
Yeah, I think Beth
Sure.
Hayner in Belvedere is aware of the vacancy, and we need some people to apply. So if you know anybody interested, send them to Beth down at Belvedere City Hall to put their name in the hat to join our disaster council.
Well, I have not talked to Adam Gabzer, and I will, but I think he would be an ideal representative from Belvedere.
Yeah.
Because he is now the co-chair of the block captain committee.
I
and
could
very
not agree
interested
more.
What's going on in Belvedere. So I will talk to him, and I suspect he will agree to that. And he would be a real addition to our group.
And just let him know it's not too much of a time constraint. We're not going to demand too much of him. We would love to have his input, once every 3 months for sure.
And Chris, anything else that you would like to say or?
Well, definitely a thank you. It's been an honor to be a part of this disaster council. I hope, and we'll check in to see check in on progress. But this was very I hope I created a benefit for the community, but I think it also benefited me as well in getting this experience. So I'd highlight, I think that the task force was certainly a very smart thing we did to create more touch points between ourselves than just the 4 meetings we have in a given year. So I would highly encourage this council to continue thinking about how that task force lives on in different ways or more specialized ways, because I think that definitely helped drove more action. And to the point around Adam becoming an official council member, this approach, the strategy is meant to be kind of that funnel from everyone being in Alert Marin to now some people doing Get Ready to a few people being block captains to then now you've got a whole list of block captains that could be candidates to join the disaster council more formally and engage a little more actively. So I think that it fits very well with this approach. So thank you again, and I'll keep an eye out.
Well, Chris, when you joined this group several months ago, I think one of our points of discussion was that it will be helpful to have a set of new eyes on all of these things, and I think that's really turned out very much so with especially your eyes, because you'd have seen this quite a bit differently than the rest of us, I think, and you've come up with a plan. I think it's going to be quite workable. So thank you for your effort. We hope you have a good time in Chicago, but I don't think we will. Okay.
Agree to disagree. I'm a little jealous.
Well, you can go back and see
So-
Chris every now and then.
I love Chicago.
I love Chicago.
Okay. Any other comments?
Robert Zadnik has joined us.
Oh, good. Good.
He's on the participant side. I'm going to. I can't, well, apparently we only can have so many panelists, so I can't get a camera on him, but welcome, Robert.
Can we even hear him? Oh, Jamie's on here too, isn't he? I guess he just joined.
He is.
Yeah, no, I've been on,
He's
I've
been
been on.
Okay, good, Jamie.
but I can't see you guys in gallery mode. I don't know why.
Lori, if you want, you can kick me out to
I hate
attendee
to
mode.
do that, Crystal. I
Oh,
really
yeah,
do, but
great.
I'm going to do that. So thank you, Crystal. It was nice to see you in person.
And Crystal, I will talk to you later about a lot of this stuff. So,
Yeah, I'll continue to listen in. Thank you.
okay, good.
All right. Chris, you made me host again.
Well, now we got Robert's name up here anyway.
Let's do that.
I'm trying to find a place to reclaim it.
I got you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Jamie. I think. Attendee. All right. I think we have Jamie. James.
How about Robert? Robert, are you on?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
you can.
All right. Looks like
Oh,
my
welcome.
video's disabled, but I'm here otherwise. Let me see if I can get that going.
It might be on my end. Hold on. Okay, there you go. I think we have Robert.
Still can't see him, but maybe that's my machine. But anyway, whoops. Oh, there he is.
There
Good.
it is.
Well, welcome.
Hey, everyone.
And Robert, we already mentioned that you are the appointee. Apparently, we're quite sure that will happen as the new city manager as of last night. And congratulations. I think that's a significant feather in your cap, and I'm sure you did a good job. for all of the rest of you folks, we have worked with Robert extensively over the past 2 or 3 years about our block cap program. He is very knowledgeable about that, plus all sorts of other things. And are you prepared, Robert, to talk about evacuation, or is this a little premature for you?
So I tried to grab Robert earlier. He's really busy. I wanted to get this on the agenda just so that if he's making a task force off of the disaster council, that we've got it on the agenda. It's all set so that they can do their committee to update the evacuation plan. Just to get it all set in place. This is going to kind of spare him from making a separate council and having to follow Brown Act stuff. So I want them to be under the umbrella of our disaster council, if that's what they choose to do, as a task force to update the evacuation plan. So I've kind of got it on the agenda to make it official. And so wanted to give Robert that chance to make sure that's what he wants to do, but just to make sure we don't waste time.
Yeah, thanks, Lori. I can comment on that. I think the thinking is that Belvedere it's codified from the 70s. We have a disaster council. It's not the joint disaster council, it's specific to Belvedere, that we can prop up at any time as needed. And it's a really condensed, kind of committee. Essentially, it involves the mayor, the city manager, the chief of police, and a couple other appointees. It is a Brown Act committee. And like I said, the way it's written in our code, it's from the 70s and it's really antiquated. Our city attorney is wanting to update that so that if needed, we could prop up this committee, without during an emergency without having to, follow Brown Act noticing requirements. I think our intention in doing that, in updating that ordinance, is that, like you said, is to get a really specific evacuation plan set up for Belvedere, with focuses a lot on evacuation and getting people off the island and analyzing choke points. I know this joint task force, and certainly Mike Lantier has worked on that with the city of Belvedere in the past and hoping to identify some of those locations. But we're wanting to kind of formalize that and get something on paper and develop some training around that with our community that's really specific to the issues we have here in Belvedere Island and Corinthian Island and in the flats over on Lagoon. So I think that our goal is to still obviously work with the joint disaster task committee and report back in on what we're working on, some of the key priorities, and then certainly if there's any members of this committee that are interested in being a part of that or giving advice, we want to hear from that. But our first step, like I said, is to get an ordinance updated so that it's current and usable, and then start working on that plan. So hopefully that kind of aligns with what you're saying. Maybe not completely, Lori, but I think the general idea is what you were trying to communicate.
Whatever makes it easier for you guys as a working group, and we can chat about it too, just to figure out what your options are and make life as easy as possible. And I think I sent you the old evacuation plan, and I've also got some exercises. We did an evacuation drill on Lagoon. I'll shoot you that too, so you'll have history if nothing else.
Yeah, thank you.
And Robert, we would much appreciate it if you could join us on these meetings. They're quarterly, so and we try to keep them to an hour and 15 minutes. So
okay,
to the extent you can do that, it would be, I think, helpful.
Yep.
One thing, Lori, I would like to ask you to put on our next agenda, if we can, is the seawall issue in Belvedere. And it also affects Tiburon. It is becoming very heated. The supporters of it in the city council and city management have a group called Protect Belvedere. There's now a group on the other side called the Accountable Belvedere that is creating some significant issues and some criticism. So I think we need to follow that. And if we could put that on the agenda for next, when is our next meeting?
July?
July. Okay, so that it's coming up for an election.
July 19th. So
Okay.
yes, I will get that on the agenda, and I will talk to you about the best appropriate speaker. Might be
right.
Robert. Sorry, Robert.
Any comments for Robert at all? again, congratulations.
Congratulations,
Tom.
Robert.
Belvedere Block Cabin Program, which I guess is our next issue, we really have not done much in the past several months. That has to get cranked up, and we will do that now that hopefully we are getting ahead of COVID. I'm not saying that with any surety, but it seems that the numbers are going in the right direction, so we could start having some training programs again. Also, in association with that, the Marin Medical Reserve Corps is rejuvenating its first aid for disaster response program. We have train-the-trainer sessions going on during the summer, and then we will start giving that that 4-hour class to residents as of probably August or September. COVID allowing that, so we'll see where things go. Okay. Anything on the evacuation decals?
So we're going to be meeting, I think, May 9th. I spoke with Grant Eulis, who was the brainchild behind this. And I think May 9th is when we're going to try to get together and meet with Patrick Kerslake, Robert Zadnick. Mike, if you'd like to join us, we're going to try to get together May 9th, waiting to hear back from people if that works, to start talking to implementation plan. Now that winter storms are behind us, I don't see any reason why we can't. And I think we'll also talk about tsunami sign placement at that point, just revisit those locations and make sure that what the National Weather Service recommended for locations is still a good fit for us.
Lori, given that I was responsible for these two items as part of the task force, I'd like to include it in knowing about that.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, you shouldn't wait on me to do the meetings, et cetera. But, I think I'd like to continue on to be involved as a member of the committee or the council, just to make sure that if somebody raises their hand and tries to be difficult about it, I will, I'll step in firmly.
Thank you. So this is literally just a few of the people that work for the city and the town, and I don't think anybody's going to be difficult, Jamie, but thank you.
No, but we've had histories with this.
So we had,
and we're not having any more.
we're not having any more. Everybody's on board.
Yes, we are. We're going to set some deadlines. I think we should have deadlines for, once Patrick Kerslake and everybody, tells us what's possible on both, per our strategic plan. I mean, once they tell us, what they think they can do, we should set a goal. I won't say it's too much. I'm busy writing a board report all day, so I'm deadlines. But I think we ought to, we ought to have some goals as to when we're going to get them accomplished. That's all.
So I've got some ideas in my head, and that's one of the things I'll be bringing up at our meeting on May 9th.
Okay.
I still plan on doing some kind of a walk your neighborhood evacuation practice exercise in the fall. I'm not giving up this year.
All right.
Okay.
Go Giants.
Go Giants.
Lori, these both have been sanctioned by both city councils. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what would be your estimate once your group gets together of actually getting some of these things deployed?
So we have the decals, we have the means, we need to hammer down the exact locations, and that's what we hope to accomplish on the May 9th meeting. It's really going to be up to the public works schedule because there's a lot of different projects going on this time of year. Robert, jump in any point here, slurry sealing and seawall stuff. There's a lot of other things that public works takes care of. So it's getting onto their schedules. So I couldn't say, I mean, I'm hoping we come up with a good map and within the next month, start laying them down, even if it's a little bit at a
Robert,
time.
you're pretty much up on the schedules for public works, at least in Belvedere. When do you think we can actually get these things? We've been talking about these things for what, Jamie, 4 years now.
Yeah, I don't know. I used to have a lot more hair when we started.
Yeah, I think obviously we want to get them in before the winter weather arrives and their streets are turning wet. It's best to apply these in dry conditions from what I understand. Yeah, I would think within the next couple of months or sometime this summer would be a good rollout. I think the messaging and how we communicate, to the community, how these are interpreted, what it means when you see the sign, I think that's going to be important, an important aspect of this as well. So that can be a part of our conversation, hopefully, Lori.
There's going to be a big marketing piece, and there's a communication team in the town of Tiburon, city of Belvedere. Mike's part of that. The city and the town halls are parts of that. We're going to make sure we have a big marketing piece on what they mean, have their education and awareness, signing up for Alert Marin so that you receive the emergency information on what the problem is and which way to go and where to go. That's going to be the big piece. And that's why I'd like to plan some kind of an exercise right afterwards so we can use it as a teachable, publicize, educate, and then practice. So definitely part of it. That's
good.
I'm excited about that part of it.
If you need any support from anybody on this committee, let us know.
I'll be hitting up the block captains because I want the block captains to make sure they encourage everybody to raise awareness and then encourage everybody to get out there and learn their neighborhood.
We're also doing our defensible space inspections basically now, and they run almost to the end of the year. So that's over 950 inspections that we can add a piece to our inspection report to each of those folks in the WUI areas. But chipper days, we can hand out stuff on this stuff. So if we circle the wagons pretty quick on the messaging on this, I think the summer several events as tied into our wonderful work from Mr. Murphy. This all kind of starts rolling, and I think it's positive. Just my 2 cents.
We can tie a lot of things together with this. It's going to be awesome.
And we can also, this is Fred with Southern Marin, we're happy to assist in that as well. We could tie some information in with our inspections over in the other part, our area of the Tiburon town, and do that. And we've collaborated with Mike on doing some vegetation chipper days, so we'll be happy to also do that.
Thank you, Fred.
Thanks, Fred. Appreciate it. All right, and that's all, I guess, that's on the agenda. Anyone have any other issues that they would like discussed at this point? All right.
Actually, one last thing, the meeting minutes that were not approved at the beginning because we didn't have a quorum.
Care of that issue. Those were distributed to you, I think, yesterday? Any corrections, additions, anything from those printed minutes that were distributed?
None for me.
No.
Any objections to accepting them? All right, we'll consider those acceptable.
Thank you. And then that's all I've got. And then,
Okay.
and then the last thing is I do want to circle back to, I'd like to get the strategic plan approved. I'd like to vote on it, which would mean I want to make a special agenda for a special meeting 2 weeks out. So before Chris leaves, I'll get it an agenda. I'll get it posted in the paper and mount so that we don't do anything wrong with Brown Act stuff. And I'd like us to all meet as a council to approve the strategic plan. If you're okay with that.
That'll be the entire council, not just the task force.
Just our disaster council.
Okay.
Yeah, Lori, let me recommend, instead of having a special meeting about it, why don't you do it by email acclamation? You can do that legally. If you send an email saying, that way we don't need to all get on a Zoom call to say aye.
Okay.
But and Christopher, while I got the floor here, when do you head for Chicago?
In about a month. Kind of June is when I'll be in residence there.
Okay, why don't you let Tom and me know when it might work for you, and we would love to host you at the San Francisco Yacht Club for a glass of wine or a beer.
I'd love that. Absolutely. I'll take you up on it.
Absolutely. Actually, I promised to do that 6 months ago.
Tom's membership number is.
That's right.
I'll buy you a beer.
done.
I'll buy you
It's
a beer at a Cubs game someday, Chris.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
accept that as well.
All right.
Thank you
Okay.
guys again.
Okay.
Yeah, let us
I think
know
we're all set.
a date that works for you. We'd love to do that.
And Robert, you're up on the Brown Act. Is that permissible, do you think, with just to do a email vote on the thing?
I've
I
not
don't
heard of
think
that
we're gonna-
before. If Jamie's confident, I'd probably just run it by a city attorney, but I'm all for simplifying things. If it's legal under the Brown Act, then that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah,
I'll look into that with the town and city clerks too and see what they think.
Yeah.
I think it still has to be available to the public and agendized, and it's an action item, so it's different. I'll look into it and get
Yeah.
back to
Well,
you.
it's-
'cause
Well,
I'm
I
not
don't
sure
mean
I've
to
heard of that.
throw a curveball at you. It's just now that we're onto baseball. But it's done in the for-profit section all the time. Whether it's a Brown Act issue or not, I leave it to you guys.
Yeah. Well, Lori.
It's
check on that
complicated.
for
I'll
us.
look into it. We may
certainly
actually
wanna
all have
do
to
it
Zoom
legally,
one more
so
time.
Whatever we have to do. Okay.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
All
So
right.
Or we could meet at the yacht club and have a glass of wine and
We
approve
could
it.
also
Never
do
mind.
that.
I'm not opposed to that.
Okay, we will call the meeting to an end then, I guess. Thank you very much for all.
And Crystal says, I don't think you can vote by email based on Robert's rules. Yeah, that's kind of what I think too. Jamie, I applaud your efforts but I think we might have to Zoom it. I'll get back to you guys in the next couple days about it. Okay.
Good. All right.
Chris, thank you for everything.
everybody.
Everybody have
Thank you,
a
Chris.
wonderful afternoon.
Take good care.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
everyone.
everything.
Seeing y'all.
Cheers.
Thanks, Freddie. See you, buddy.